Okay.
Okay.
Hello. Welcome to a special interview edition of Saddle Up Radio. I'm really happy, excited, and honored to welcome Amanda Bordrup to the show. Full disclosure, this is take 2 of this interview because I somehow stupidly lost the file. I don't know. The mic also didn't work, but that's showbiz, baby.
Yep.
Right? And so I've asked Amanda to come back. We've got a really interesting interview for you today. And also, it's kind of nice being nighttime. It's like, it's a little, there's some ambiance, which we don't usually get that on Saddle Up. It's like Saddle Up After Dark. So you're the first.
Saddle Up. I was going to say satellite. Saddle Up After Dark is good.
You like that?
New concept.
Yeah, new concept. You're the first guest on Saddle Up After Dark.
Hell yeah.
But it's all very, straight ahead sort of stuff we're going to talk about. So I guess we can start at the beginning, which is a good place to start. Amanda, I met you at the Heatley, I think when was that? Like September, October? Sometime around there, yeah. And I very quickly learned, I think you had a camera, you were filming a lot of stuff, and I was like, what's going on here? And I realized that you were filming for your new documentary, East of Maine, which actually just premiered on December 7th.
Yes.
At the Heatley, and then last night it played again at the Lido.
Yes.
And it's also coming up a third time.
Yes,
right?
on the 17th at Slice of Life Gallery.
Slice of Life Gallery in Vancouver on January 17th.
Yes.
So mark that down. So we're going to talk about that documentary today. Full disclosure, have not seen it yet. I'm sorry. And I know, but I will be there at Slice.
Great.
So that'll be really fun. And I think the other thing I want to just mention to folks who are watching this is if you haven't seen it or heard it, go back and listen to my November Saddle Up Radio episode because Amanda did join me here. And although we lost the interview, she chose 10 of your favorite tunes that were inspired by artists who are in the documentary. And she gives some thoughtful sort of behind-the-scenes context to each of those songs, which is really great. So I really encourage you. You can find that on Mixcloud, and you can find it all through my Instagram, which is saddleup.radio. So check that out. I guess, the big question is, what's it all about? I mean, I know it is about the Vancouver country scene, I suppose, on the surface. But in your mind, in your words, what is East of Maine all about?
East of Maine is about community first and foremost. It's about friendship, music that goes beyond country but kind of falls under a country umbrella, so to speak. There's a lot of folk that's covered in the documentary. Polka elements, jazz elements, punk elements, but country is the binding link that kind of unites all the musicians in the documentary. Love, but like platonic love. Love for communities, love for art, love for music, love for each other. And I mean, East Van, obviously. It's the entire thing is shot in East Van at different institutions, different venues. And in a way, it's also kind of about me because it is from my POV.
Right.
The entire thing is shot kind of through my eyes and how I see everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like kind of like a inside perspective on how my mind works in the community and how I view community in general with these people. But I mean, community is definitely number one. That is what it's about.
And was that something you wanted to explore going into it? Like, did you have a kind of a thesis? Did you have a question that you were trying to answer, or something even about yourself that you were trying to explore going into it? Or did you find that the act of doing it raised new questions, raised new themes, or did it go in an interesting path that was unexpected to you?
Yes, very. The agenda of the documentary changed so much, especially early on in the process. When I sketched the idea and when everything was brewing inside my mind, it was meant to be just a kind of shits and giggles documentary about my closest friends and mainly about the artists. And then dreamt very big and thought, why not? I'll contact these musicians. And then they were actually interested in doing it. And I thought, okay, great, I can run with some musicians. But then so many musicians wanted to be a part of it that the country music aspect became so big and a huge part of it. And I changed kind of away from just being friends and like artists, but still wanted to have that. And the community aspect didn't even really matter until the end. Because people were, like, I was realizing while I was interviewing and filming that people are so focused on the people in the scene and how they got their start because of someone, or because they knew someone who knew someone, or like everything is based on favors and friendships building and venues being built by various people, and like there's so much being intertwined all the time that the community aspect didn't really become a thing until I was almost halfway through. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is the journey with the documentary changed so much until it kind of found its little niche when I think you were introduced to it. That's when it really was defined.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and I guess, that's not unlike a lot of music scenes, but I think that is one of the things that maybe makes country music so special, is that like sharing of songs and ideas and musicians, and you see so much crossover even within scenes and between scenes. But yeah, for anyone who's unacquainted, in the Vancouver country scene, first of all, is incredibly talented artists, which was really quite remarkable to me. I mean, I was I'm still blown away by it. But also, they're always just helping each other out. They're propping each other up. They're learning from one another. And I think it just makes them all better for it, which is really nice to see. So maybe we take a step back for a second. How did you land that job? Like, where did this idea come from? Like, what was the genesis of the project?
Well, it's all thanks to Courtney from Forester Vintage, because she's a close friend of mine. She was one of the people that kind of introduced me to everything. Like, building a friendship with her kind of meant I could build friendships with other people and then have that whole chain reaction that everyone always finds happens. And her and I, back in the spring, we were at a show at Green Auto, I think. It was either Green Auto or the Heatley. We're still debating what it was. And watching some random show. And we both got really drunk. And I told her, because everyone was having a good time. Everyone was there. It was just one of those perfect East Van nights where you know everyone and you're having a good time. And I told Courtney, I don't get why people don't know about this. I don't get why people don't talk about this. To me, it's so amazing. It's like this little world that exists that just is such a niche and such a secret almost.
Yeah.
But like, it deserves to be recognized as more. And to those that know me, I cannot let go of an idea if I have an idea. And I become obsessed. And I became obsessed with the idea of capturing it. I didn't know how. I didn't know in what medium. I have no background in film. No education, nothing. I didn't even have a camera. But I was like, I'll do a documentary. Mm-hmm. Why not? Mm-hmm. And I became obsessed with it and just had to make it happen within a week after talking to Courtney.
Yeah, I feel like I had the same kind of experience by our mutual friend and also collaborator Psyche, who is behind the camera right now, who introduced me to you and that whole scene.
We love Dave.
We love you, Dave. But yeah, I mean, same thing. I was just like, I can't believe this is not just more well known. And I mean, I think it is over time. It's growing. But yeah, that's really interesting. And like you said, you didn't know the medium you would use. Was there something that made you choose what you chose in the end? Or was it just like, oh, I happen to have a camera? Let's do this.
Well, I didn't get the camera until much later.
Right.
And it was actually my roommate's like deadbeat camera that he didn't want to use anymore. That actually is the foundation of the entire film, which is funny. But at the time I was like, could I make a podcast series? Could I make like little street interviews? Could I write a blog? What could I do? But I kept going back to film for some reason. Because we've all seen various documentaries and film that capture specific things that really touch us. And I thought, well, if it's a visual thing, which is how I see the community, it is this like red, sweaty universe with beer and disco balls. And I was like, it has to be visual. So why not?
Yeah.
And I can make it super informative. I can talk to people about who they are. And it just kind of, it made sense for that idea, which was obviously scary considering I didn't have any equipment, and classic me proudly stated to everyone that I was doing it. So proud, like, I'm doing this thing. Didn't know, behind the scenes, didn't know what I was doing. Panicking every day. But
Classic you.
Yeah,
Classic
classic.
Amanda. Did you consider Sweaty Universe as an alternate title?
funny thing, I had that as not Sweaty Universe, but a variation of that. I had that as one of my working titles.
Yeah, I love it.
Because it really is. If you've been to an Eastman show, specifically at the Wise Hall, you know it's sweaty.
Yeah. And so were you a big country fan before all of this? Like,
Yes.
were you already drawn to that genre?
Yes, I'll say being here and being with all these musicians have definitely reignited the love, but the love has always been there. I grew up with, I wouldn't say I grew up with country music, but my family loves anything that has to do with the United States in like the most stereotypical way possible. Thanksgiving, turkey, Las Vegas, cowboys, like, all that whole aesthetic. Especially my granddad. And he would play, you know, Johnny Cash and Waylon and the classics when I was a kid. But I was a folk girl through and through. But that kind of, it overlaps so much.
Oh, yeah.
Folk people love Townes Van Sant, who is also loved by the country people, and so forth. So I've always loved the genre, but not super popular in Europe when I was growing up. So embarrassing, I didn't admit it to everyone.
Yeah.
But here it's, you know, everyone's a country fan here, so you can proudly state it. And I am a country fan.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's funny, Nick, because nowadays you are getting more, interestingly, there's like these like pretty intense traditional country artists from like Italy and France and like all of these interesting places. I hear you on that because I grew up in Alberta and
The Bird.
Yeah, Alberta. And that was so common where you would meet folks from other countries, other places in the world, and they were just so enamored with Western movies, or like, you know, it feels like you're in it, you know, because so many Western movies were filmed there, and it just feels like you're on the open plains or whatever. So yeah, okay. And so to bring it back to the film, what I know I asked you a little bit of this, but what would you say is like the most surprising thing when you started, like, you know, really getting into the meat of the project? Was there something that just really threw you off course, or that you really didn't expect?
From a technical standpoint, I underestimated editing so much. Holy smokes.
Relatable. Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't want to ever do that again.
Yeah.
At least not alone. I really underestimated how incredibly time consuming it would be. I underestimated how expensive it would be, how I would not sleep for 8 months and work myself tirelessly for it. That was never the goal, but you work for your dreams and your projects.
Yeah.
That's more from a technical standpoint. Also, I didn't expect the hype. I didn't expect it to grow. I didn't expect to stand here with you and talk about it on the radio. But
Here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
But I would say the most surprising thing maybe for a viewer would be, I think it comes as a surprise to many how rooted the scene is and how long it's actually existed here in various shapes and forms. I didn't think it did. Like I thought it was very much built on the current hype of country music.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Or at least just like built from a very small scene. But it's been huge. And especially the first hour of the documentary, the first half, you really get to learn how long these people have like worked to make an actual country and folk scene in Vancouver with varying degrees of success. And that was a big surprise to me.
Mm-hmm.
And also learning, if you're not from Vancouver, you get to learn how many venues have been lost, how difficult it is to make art in the city. I guess that's when my parents saw the documentary, they were like, oh, we didn't know it was so difficult to make it there.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. There's a lot of like knowledge that's shared through the documentary.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I know you're a people person. Maybe we could talk about the people a bit.
Yes.
How did the subjects react to being in a documentary? You know, it's probably not something they've dealt with much, if at all.
Yeah.
And how did it affect your relationships in terms of like, you know, really getting to know these people or maybe learning something about them that you maybe didn't know?
I definitely grew closer with, I would say, Courtney, Eric of Daisy Garland, Madeline Perry, who's an incredible visual artist. I grew closer with them. When I interviewed them, it was mainly just talking about the stuff we normally talk about. And I knew all their personal journeys, but got to really talk about it in depth. It was really beautiful. It was a great bonding experience with people I consider my friends. But a lot of the people in the documentary, I had a fairly non-existing relationship with, or no relationship with at all.
Yeah.
A lot of them I met for the first time when I interviewed them.
Yeah.
Which was awkward, but grown friendships with all of them, I would say. Some people, I especially noticed this last night at the Lido when I was screening. Some people do not like to watch themselves on the screen.
Uh-huh.
And some people really do.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, not to say that there's difference in egos, but you can definitely tell who's used to performing and who's not.
Yeah.
But everyone has been so supportive and so eager to be on and happy to support the project.
Yeah.
And everyone has had great things to say, which is heartwarming. Thank you so much. But I really didn't expect everyone to become a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought it was just going to be like, oh, I'm coming here to interview you and then I'll dip.
Right.
Which is beautiful.
I guess it's because there's so much intimacy built into it.
There
in
is.
a sense, right?
Yeah, you kind of spend a whole day with them.
Yeah. And
because you have to shoot B-roll, you have to make sure, like we just did now, make sure everything's set up so you don't have to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And talk and interview and talk and interview and talk and interview. And there's always room for conversations and anecdotes to literally take 20 minutes to build when you do long interviews. And sometimes I would spend like a full day with people. And it was super cozy. And of course, like, you're going to grow some type of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my favorite part of the documentary. That was the interview phase. It was so cozy.
Yeah.
Very informative. I learned a lot. And I learned so fast how to conduct interviews and how to set up microphones.
Yeah.
Which was a great experience.
Was it hard to cut stuff?
Yep. That was the worst part of the documentary. Yeah. Cutting stuff out. Which is also why I leaned so much towards podcasts in the beginning, because you can just kind of have it raw and unedited. Mm-hmm. But with a documentary, and at that point, I had such a clear vision in my head of what I wanted it to look like, especially the interviews. And I knew they were going to be cut in various ways when people would mention a name, like if Elliot was mentioning Bob, Q Bob, and, you know, all that stuff. And cutting things out that felt so relevant was not easy and not fun.
Yeah, it must be just because I nerd out about this stuff. It must be interesting as a documentarian to think about where you end and they begin, or what their story is versus what you are bringing to the process.
Yeah,
you know, and like, were you cognizant of that? Were you kind of thinking this is their story. I don't want to interfere too much with it because then it feels like my story. Like, does that ever come up?
Yeah, and the very first interview / section of the documentary I edited and finished was John Evans, who is a pedal steel player, plays for Vanessa D. That one was much easier because he had a very specific idea of how he wanted it to almost look like. He had a ton of creative ideas, which we just rolled with because it was so easy. And I went with all of his ideas, making it so much easier to edit. And then I got a lot of practice editing. And then from there, I had to build everything up creatively myself. And it was very important to me when I started doing that it was not going to be like John's section. I wanted every section to be fairly unique. I was going to appear or feature as minimally as possible, and that everyone was covering the same things but with different perspectives, which is a really difficult thing to master. Because everyone gets kind of like the same amount of time. They have to talk about the same things, but they can't repeat themselves.
Right.
So you have to know each section, each interview almost verbatim, and then from there build it. And that took so much time. But it was important to me that everyone had a unique story.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would feel repetitive, and it would also feel like, why is this person selected?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's...
I'm not sure if this is at all making sense.
Yeah.
But like, I knew some people would talk very specifically about the Wise Hall, for example. And it was like, okay, that person can talk more about that than anyone else. And this person can talk more about this than anyone else. But everyone kind of has to talk about where they're from, how their journey was into the scene, how they feel supported, what do they do, what's their medium, and what do they think about this specific thing.
Right.
Something like that, just to give an overview, because it's not a deep dive, unfortunately. I wish it was, but on each person. But it kind of gives an idea of who everyone is, everyone is in relation to each other, and what they do.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's more than enough.
Yeah. Okay. That's, yeah. I mean,
sorry, that was a spiel.
No, I really can't wait to see it now. So I need to go.
Yeah.
Talk about the premiere. I know I saw your Instagram. I feel like it must have been an emotional experience.
It was incredibly emotional. Holy smokes. I arrived 3 hours before anyone else. Began to set up, and nothing was working at all.
Been there, yeah.
Yeah, nothing was working. People started arriving. I was in a ball gown and was like, I'm very stressed. People arriving. Also, the place we had the premiere is a bar. And when I arrived, it was packed with people I did not know who were just there to enjoy a Saturday evening. I got very stressed. I can't tell people to leave from a public bar, just hoping they would maybe disappear eventually. Nothing technical was working. And I turn around and the place is packed. And there's about 8 minutes until premiere time. Nothing is still working. But thankfully, thanks to Janky Bungag, shout out Janky, he did something, and on my computer it just went beep, 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 and it worked. So we ran a little bit behind, I think 20 minutes, but once everyone was in there and watching it, I just became way too nervous to even be there. So I went on a lot of walks around the block, sat in the back, kind of disappeared in and out because I was just way too nervous. And then at the end, it was dead quiet in there, and I look up, and it's a part of the documentary that talks about community, and I wept, and I wept, and I could not stop crying, and then everyone clapped, standing ovation. I'm getting a little bit emotional now.
Yeah.
It was the same that happened last night at the Lido. That section always makes me cry, and then I stand on stage and cry. But it was incredible. It was such a beautiful night. Everyone, basically everyone, because you guys were not there, but a lot of people were there. Everyone I interviewed was there.
Yeah.
It was it was just such a beautiful good night.
What kind of things did people tell you afterwards?
Honestly, not a lot.
No?
I didn't hear much. People were just like, great job.
Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
Great
I
job.
worked myself tirelessly for 9 months to hear great job.
Yeah.
But I mean, since then, I've heard much more in-depth analysis on it, but I think what people took away from it and what made people feel so happy in the moment was just the feeling of being recognized and seen, which can do so much for people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think people felt like there's a shift coming. Like this will get people opportunities or a chance to feel seen again or gigs or whatever it is. Like I don't claim that my documentary will do any miracles, but hopefully it will make someone fall in love with a musician or I don't know, it's just something. And in that moment, it felt like anything's possible because we feel seen in this. And that felt really beautiful to me. I wanted people to feel seen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it must be validating. It must be pretty beautiful for people, you know? I think, so let's do a bit of a rapid fire. What is one thing that people should know about the Vancouver country scene?
That it is highly based on skill, talent, patience, friendship, and insanely hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Summarized.
Yes.
Trademark.
Yes. Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
And now that you have this under your belt, are you going to do more documentaries? Like what's next for the doc? I know we've got January 17th coming up.
Yeah.
And then any like festival stuff, you're going to start your next documentary immediately?
No, I'm going to do the festival circus.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to do my best to have more screenings. Mm-hmm. Making a new one, I did have a tiny idea I was exploring about doing one about the jazz scene.
Okay.
That I've since long
You're in the right
departed
spot.
with. What do you mean?
Well, there's jazz shows here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jazz is great here.
Yeah.
Jazz is great in BC, Okanagan jazz.
Yeah.
But I've since departed with that idea.
Okay.
But I have many ideas brewing. One in particular that involves my camera.
Okay.
So there will be something
So teaser.
soonish.
All right.
Yes.
You won't say, but okay.
I won't say.
Okay.
Mainly because I'll tell you after. But
All right.
there is something brewing. And I can't wait.
All
But
right.
yeah.
Okay, great. And then last question, or unless you want to say anything else, is there anything else that I know you're involved in a lot of stuff? Is there anything else you want to plug? Is there anything else you want us to know about the documentary? Anything else you want to say, just like to summarize?
Okay, let me think. First of all, go see the documentary. That would be great.
Yeah.
Not a necessity, would be great. I would, however, urge everyone to go to the shows of the people in the documentary. They need support. Venues need support. Go see shows at Green Auto. Mm-hmm. Go see shows at the Heatley. Go see shows at Wise Hall, especially Wise Hall. And then, yeah, I'm working on a bunch of stuff. I have my birthday coming up at the Wise Hall on March 29th. Chase Cooley is performing.
Yes.
Lava
nice.
is performing, and full band Daisy Garland for first time in 2 years.
It's exciting.
I'm so excited. That's going to be fun. Come to my poetry shows. I do poetry shows every third Wednesday at Forestera Vintage on 688 East Hastings.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to probably do a bunch of stuff soon.
Okay. So a bunch of stuff, including a secret thing.
Many secret things.
And also, I should mention, a lot of the country artists go to your poetry readings too. Yeah.
Ian.
Yeah. Really good.
Ian goes. Ben goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been lovely. And thank you so much for coming back. I'm sorry I messed up and lost the file, but I think if anyone knows about that,
Hey.
I figured maybe Amanda.
Hey, you know what? I lost 5 interviews, both
Yeah.
audio and video.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it's like. I had no stress when you contacted me. I was like, great, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Because it's so stressful losing footage. I totally get it.
Seriously.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you for joining Saddle Up with Lazy J After Dark, first edition.
Yay.
Also, again, reminder, if you haven't listened, the November Saddle Up features Amanda a lot. She talks a lot about the song. She plays some of her favorite tracks from the show.
Yes.
January 17th, that's Slice.
Yes.
Bring it in.
Aw.
That was so nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks, Amanda.